Welcome to Hidden Wisdom. Hidden Wisdom exists to initiate truth seekers into the mysteries, gently guiding them toward a lived experience of the divine that awakens and transforms faith without dismantling family or community. This work is about faith renovation and expansion, learning how to inhabit your spiritual foundation more fully, allowing for depth, relationship, and wisdom to grow over time. I'm your host, Megan Farner. Here we explore Christ-centered esotericism, spiritual discernment, embodied wisdom, and the path of initiation, so your faith can mature, deepen, and become more alive. If you're seeking more and wanting to grow with care and integrity, you are in the right place. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Hidden Wisdom. I'm so grateful to be joined by my new friend, Elle Hales. Elle grew up around the world as the daughter of an officer in the U.S. military, an experience that deeply shaped her appreciation for stories and diversity. As a young adult, she spent 18 months abroad in Taiwan, serving as a missionary. She studied Mandarin, Asian area studies, and creative writing at BYU. And today, Elle keeps her nomad roots, always on the move with her family of 6 as her husband serves in the U.S. Army. Today, she works as a spirit communicator, employing spiritual gifts that she has had since childhood. She hosts the Through the Veil podcast with her co-host, Camille McConnell, and I'm so grateful that we finally have the opportunity to connect for a podcast. Thanks so much for joining us, Elle.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm super excited. We have a lot of similar passions and a lot of similar specialties. I think it was aligned time.
Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely. I know. I have a good friend who has been working with you and taking one of your classes, and she was just absolutely raving about you and the experience and what she's been learning. And so I'm really excited for you to share your gifts with us today. Can you tell us a little bit more about your background and what it means to be a spirit communicator?
Yeah, let's dive right into it. I've had these gifts since, as far back as I can remember. And I think this has really fueled my passion into understanding spiritual gifts in a very grounded way and a very faith-centered way, because it's a very lived experience. When we think about things like spiritual gifts, oftentimes it's the grand schemes, right? It's like the visionary experience that someone has. They're, scripturally carried away to a mountaintop, or we tend to either base it in like crazy reality TV or fantasy TV, or in like really doctrinal based scriptural stories, right? And it is those things sometimes, but also it's a very lived experience. I think these spiritual gifts we experience every single day, especially intuitive based gifts, and most people may not recognize or understand that's what's going on. And so as a child, when I was, from as far back as I can remember, I just kind of have this haze of general anxiety that I recall about my experience, because I felt things, I saw things, I heard things that maybe most people didn't. And it took me probably several years before I understood that other people didn't. And my parents just did their best to kind of like allay those fears and be like, the very standard, like, there's nothing there. There's nothing in the darkness. Like, there's nothing there at night when we turn out the light, right? And I catch my husband saying this to my kids today, and I'm like, stop. Stop. It's not how we handle it. Because I knew that there were things there in the dark with me. I would feel presences. Sometimes I would see people. I would see shadows. I would see things move. Sometimes I would hear things, almost like hearing voices in another room, right? Just beyond the wall, where you can hear with clarity the exact conversation that's going on. And I was just very sensitive to that as a child. And it was just generally a very scary experience for me. I'm going to go into this a little deeper a little later, but I have kind of a theory about why this happens a lot, particularly with children. I think that they can be more sensitive to maybe the darker side of spiritual existence, spiritual beings. And that was definitely the case for me. I have a lot of friends in this work. I've been doing this for a long time. So I have a lot of friends who had the beautiful experience of like, grandma came and sat on the edge of their bed and took them on this visionary journey to go meet Jesus. And you're like, wow, that's so fantastic. This is not my experience. My experience was a lot more with like seeing dark shadows that had not the good feelings in my room with me, and not knowing how to handle that, not knowing how to get rid of that, not knowing that I was safe all the time. And so I had a lot of anxiety growing up. I also, like you said in the bio, I lived overseas for a large part of my childhood. I explored a lot of other countries, ancient cultures, like historical sites and things like that, especially during my middle grade and early teen years. And that is kind of when I began to understand that there was a capacity of dialing in. So there was an amount which I could ignore, and there was an amount which I could pick up more. And so I began to really experiment with what that would look like. And unfortunately, it got me into some hot spots. It got me into some trouble sometimes. And some of those experiences were less desirable. They were more scary. And sometimes they were just overwhelming. I mean, like if you go to the Tower of London, where there was a huge history of actual torture that existed, hundreds of thousands of people, bloodshed, torture occurred. It's very overstimulating to have an experience energetically with what exists still in that place today, right? So a lot of historical experiences and stuff, but it taught me a lot about um, my own level of control, the beginning, just the foundations of what that could maybe look like. Um, but I didn't find a place to anchor this in faith. And this is where the problems began with this, is I had no one talks about these things. Today, I love doctrine. I love gospel. I love world religion. I've done a lot of study in those areas. And I have a lot more knowledge. But back then, back as like a budding 12-year-old, I had no idea where to anchor these things or where to place them, how to describe my experience to other people, what these things meant. So I did a lot of wandering, a lot of searching through my teenage years to try to find context for what this experience was. As far as my family's faith at that point, our religious background, we are LDS, so we did belong to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but it was more like a cultural association. We lived overseas a lot, and sometimes church was far away, so we didn't always go. My father was deployed a lot, and so when he wasn't home, it was almost assured we weren't going to go. And so my understanding of even my own faith background was somewhat limited at that point. And of course, we don't talk about these things. We don't talk about spiritual experiences. We don't talk about experiences through the veil. And definitely at that time, I mean, it was like the 90s, the early 2000s. Nobody talks about those things in anything. And it was a struggle. Like I felt extremely an outlier. I felt extremely isolated, and I felt scared. I didn't know how to handle a lot of the things that I was experiencing or how to explain them. So I went a wandering through a lot of different contexts. I explored everything from Catholicism to Wicca, right? We went all the way through the whole spectrum, trying to look for some kind of understanding, some kind of explanation that made sense for my experience. I was heavy into the online communities. I was like right at the beginning of like chat rooms and instant messaging, and I was really heavy into the online communities and the research, trying to find an identity, trying to find an understanding of everything that I went through. And it became pretty obvious. I was dabbling in things that I shouldn't be. It was attracting definitely an experience that it was not advisable. And I had probably about the age of 17 or 18, and a trigger warning for people who don't like horror. Maybe skip this part. I generally like to take an uplifting kind of bent on what these things are, because they don't have to be scary. And ultimately, when we are educated, when we're in control of ourselves and our abilities, and our spiritual experience is aligned, they shouldn't be. We shouldn't be alarmed. But I was not. I was not in alignment. I was not in a place where I was connecting or even looking for those things in the light. And so what I was experiencing a lot were things that were not in alignment. And that had a blowback on my life of depression and anxiety, of rebellion, a sense of lostness, all the typical things. I mean, I was a teenager too, so you have hormones, you have, you have all the mental and physical growth that's happening at that point as well. But when I was about 17 or 18, I had a tipping point. For some reason, I was alone in my house. Perhaps my younger brother was still living at home at that time, and I think he had like an away game or something, some kind of a RTC meet that they went off to. And I was alone in my house, and there wasn't even like a triggering event for why this occurred that I can recall. But it was late one night. I also had to sleep with all the lights on because I knew the things that were in the dark would come off. So if I was alone, especially, like, I had the hall light on, I had my closet light on, I had the bathroom light on, like we were day glow. But even within that halo of light, I had an experience where I felt a presence in the room begin to gather. That was my first indicator. There I was laying in bed. I was doing my own thing, getting ready for bed, laying there in this, not even the darkness. And it pulled my attention like a magnet to the corner of the room near the closet. It's always the closet. That's the space of evil. And it pulled my attention there. And I felt like the shadows gathering. It was very almost sci-fi in what I witnessed. And it was like the darkness kind of coalesced. It pulled together in like mist, and this feeling of like absolute heaviness, soul heaviness, which is something that you can't understand unless you felt it. It's hard to even describe. It's like the absence of light and hope, gathering in the corner of that room and taking form. So that darkness took a solid shape. And it was the shape of a man. And he stood there and he watched me and I watched him. And I was just paralyzed. Like, you can't move when you're in such a state of abject fear. Like, what are you going to do? And so I laid there. I have no idea. It could have been 30 seconds. It could have been 10 seconds. It could have been 3 whole minutes that I laid there. And we just kind of like stared at each other. And it wasn't like I could see in photorealism his face. It was like the outline of the person with solid form and the shape. So like there were no distinct features, just darkness, like a black star, right? And I had no idea. I don't even know where my thoughts were at that point, but I suddenly very clearly remembered my mother telling me a story of the night before she got baptized, where she had seen something in her closet as well. She had seen something show up in a very similar shape and form in her closet. She called them demons. And she had, the week before, her primary teacher had shared with her that when you have situations like this where it's so scary, you call upon the name of Christ. And the name of Christ will banish all evil. Like that faith will banish all evil. At this point in my life, I wasn't attached to Christianity. I didn't have anything of a faith or a testimony that I personally felt secure in or felt identified with, aside from cultural heritage, like my family of origin and their background of faith, right? But I was at my wits and I had no idea what to do. I was sitting there and I was just calling out. I was like, "Oh, Heavenly Father, Jesus Christ, like, come save me. Like, take care of this. Like, I don't know what to do. I'm just so afraid." And I remember repeating, like, "Jesus, come save me. Jesus Christ, come save me." And just as it came, it left. It wasn't instantaneous. It wasn't like it blinked out of the room or anything like that. It dissipated and it was gone. And I knew I was safe when that heaviness disappeared. Like that weight weighing my soul to the bed. Like I literally couldn't move. I was frozen in place. And when that was gone, I was like sweating. I was breathless, like just this extreme fight or flight response being restrained, and I decided that was the point in which I was going to learn more about Jesus. Like, it's a powerful name. And that was the turning point for me, where I came back into an understanding of my relationship with God. There's a lot of groundwork. It wasn't like my problems were solved after that point. I had to start developing a relationship with my deity, with God, with Christ, and with my understanding of what that was. And it was a road. It was a long road. And after that point, I was like, I'm not doing anything with these gifts. If these are gifts, they're a curse. Like I'm not. And so I shut the door hard. I pushed it all away really hard and decided to put my attention entirely into understanding religion and understanding faith and committing myself to that. I ended up going to BYU, a miracle of miracles. I ended up serving a mission for our church. And I had a lot of experiences that seemed preparatory, where I went to East Asia, where I'm right now. I'm currently in South Korea. But there were a lot of unknown spirits that we interacted with on my mission. And there were a couple of moments where I was called upon. There were some interactions that other missionaries in my area had with things coming into their apartments, their homes, or with the people they were working with, they were teaching the gospel to, where I was like, I know what to do. Like, I don't know how to handle it. And we came in and we got rid of those. We, brought in more of that light, more of that godlike love, and cast out all of the darkness. But that was really the extent of it until I was in my mid-20s. When I met my husband, a few of these intuitive experiences started coming back with him. But it wasn't really until my mid-20s that things really came back online. And I felt like the Lord had let me do my wandering. He'd let me do my dalliances. And he was like, look, I gave you this ability. I gave you this skill. There's a purpose to it, and I need you to use it. And I was terrified. And this came over the course of a couple of years. My husband was in law school. So if you're familiar with that, or medical school, they're very similar. I was a law school widow, was alone all the time with two very active little boys, losing my mind. And I'm not well suited to the mom life. So like I needed something.
This is a common struggle.
I became my own project, really, of like, I was actually given this time and this space with nothing else to do. Like, given my own devices, I would have become a neurosurgeon, right? Like, I would have gone to medical school. I would have gone to law school. I would have done something like that with my life. But I was sequestered here alone without the capacity to do anything else. We moved across the entire country from any family. I was literally alone in this community that I had to build for myself. And so it kind of was a gift. I had nothing else to turn to except to face down these demons that I'd been hiding from my entire life. And I wasn't really given a choice. It was kind of like, well, time's now, you're going to deal with this. And it was a journey. It was still a journey for me to understand questions. First of all, like I had built this testimony around faith. I had this many experiences with God at this point. And it was like, well, are these two simpatico? Like, do these things go hand in hand? Are they compatible? Is it okay? Is there a permission here to do these things, which seem a little fringy, right? They seem like on the surface level, like they wouldn't necessarily fit into mainstream Christianity. So I had to overcome that hurdle. I also had to overcome my own fear with understanding how the spirit world is around us all the time, both the positive and the negative, and how to handle those things. And I shouldn't be afraid. I don't have to be afraid of what these things are. And that was probably the biggest hurdle from my own personal background. But I've met many, many people that relate to this as well. And I'm very passionate about helping people to not live in this state of fear or paranoia or anxiety with these kinds of extrasensory experiences that you tend to have, and angling that towards the positive, because there are so many beautiful experiences that can also occur through spiritual gifts. And today, this is kind of my bent, right? I sought out education in this field, and it had to be in like a more secular sense, because there just isn't any faith-based development available yet. There's today. But at the time, 10 years ago, there wasn't. It was just basically me trying to figure out how to apply this to my faith, to my religion, to my spiritual understanding. And it was hard. It was a hard road. But when I stepped back and I let myself be open to it, I was extremely guided. There were things that fell into place, people that I met. The path was one step at a time, but it was definitely entirely guided. I felt that pull. And every time I was at a crossroads to make a choice, it was right there. It was just provided to me every single time, even down to financial miracles, right? We were law school students. We didn't have 2 pennies to scrape together. We were literally living off of student loans. And a single internship provided the exact amount of money that I needed to take a class, just suddenly out of the blue, like a week before I suddenly found out this class was starting in like another week. Miracles, direct miracles. The hand of God was just everywhere during this time. So fast forward to today, this is 10 years in the future, and I have been pretty much using these gifts every day since to help people mostly connect with their loved ones through the veil, to help have closure, to have healing, have that experience, and really bring in education about how close those loved ones really sit to us, how close the spirit world is daily involved in our lives. I mean, this is metaphysical, but it's not theoretical. It's actual, it's practical, it's grounded. And when we reach out, we can also have those experiences. And I'm really passionate about helping everyone to understand their own spiritual gifts, especially their own intuitive capacity for connection, which I firmly believe we all have, and helping people understand the level of connection that they can have themselves. And this connection, and I mean, it's bigger than that, because I firmly believe, I'm writing a book about this right now, spiritual gifts are our connection to divinity. It is through the development is through the understanding, especially of these intuitive gifts, and through discernment of those things, that we have experience with the metaphysical, that we have experience with the spiritual. And it's in those experiences that faith becomes real. It becomes lived. and conversion takes hold, right? That we become different, we become changed. It's not necessarily through the physical material living of our life. It's through the spiritual opening of our eyes, of our spirit, of our soul, and the integration of those things into our daily life that we become changed. So I love it. It's like my favorite topic to talk about. I'm so excited to delve into these subjects a little bit further here.
For sure. Thank you so much for sharing that. Beautiful. And I appreciate it. And there's so many things, like I have a billion questions I want to ask. So many different directions we could go. But maybe just first to say that I so appreciate that perspective that you cultivated and what you're writing your book about, of this idea of a lived experience of the divine and this embodiment, right? Like, I think that that's so much of what we try to teach here on Hidden Wisdom, is that it does not have to be purely theological or intellectual. Like, our experience with God, the idea of wisdom is that it's experiential knowledge, right? So it's, I know something because I have actually experienced it in my body. And that's so much of what we're about here, is that embodiment and that grounded mysticism, the reality of God, and how we can explore that deeper. And so I agree. I love this concept of spiritual gifts, because these are evidences of our divinity and our connection to the greater divine, right? The God that is in and through all things. So I'm thrilled to talk about that. There's a couple different directions that I want to go. But the first question that I kind of felt to ask is, maybe we could talk about what are some of the principles of the spirit realm that maybe we are undereducated in, and or maybe we just like get things totally wrong. And we can talk about that on both sides, right? What do we misunderstand about the light and about the reality of spirit? And also, what do we misunderstand about the dark?
That's a fantastic question. I think we should start with the light, because it gives more empowerment to maybe how we handle the dark things. And fear is such a pervasive emotion that it can kind of overshadow, if we allow it to, it can kind of overshadow maybe the more positive, the things of our life and our own personal power to handle that, which is really, it's like an ironic lie that is spun to us, right? I think probably the most important thing that we are beginning to talk about more, especially in our faith background, is how ever present it is all the time. It's not unreachable. And I think this is the biggest cultural misinterpretation, misunderstanding that maybe we have is pervasive, is like, oh, well, like I can't bother them. They're just somewhere far away doing an important work that like I can't access. That's not really the case. What they're doing, I mean, is important, but what we're doing here is important too. And the investment that they have in us is huge. The amount of work that goes behind the scenes, behind the veil, in our day-to-day lives, in what we're doing here, is massive, right? It's like every one of us is a stage production, is a theater production, right? And we have teams of people helping us all the time. You can call them guides, you can call them ministering angels or guardian angels, guardian spirits. The terminology is not important. It's functioning, whether or not you have a label for what it is, right? And so there are like teams. I think of those pioneer stories that we hear all the time, where there's evidences of this here, where it's like they were going across the plains and they couldn't quite make their hand carts up. And so they felt people come push behind them, right? Not just one, not just two, but like they saw actual handprints in the snow on the wood of their carts as they were going up, of like a team of people helping them push. And those are, we have that help all the time. The spirit world, it overlays directly over the top of us, and they're around, and they are like a whisper away. It's like a breath away. And so the connection that we have to them is ever present. And I think in our gospel, this is why we have things like the sealing power. We're still literally and spiritually connected to them. And so when you're feeling like you're missing your grandma or your mother or your father who has passed, and you feel them close, but you're like, I don't know, like, I don't want to bother them. They're there. They're already there, whether you recognize them there or not. The spirit world is, of course, and I'm not the beginning and end of knowledge here. I've been doing this for a long time. I always tell people, I joke, I have like a murder string board in my head, like all the connections of the things that I have made. I'm like, ooh, isn't that fascinating? We got a new string, like here or there. But if you think about the volume, the number of spirits who have passed, who are on the other side doing what they're doing, I think we have this very set format of what we think it looks like. And especially from a religious context, we're like, oh, they're all doing missionary work. Like they're all just up there. I don't know. There's like a giant MTC in heaven and they're like doing missionary work, knocking on spirit doors or something, teaching in groups and clusters in heaven. And that definitely, I've had many experiences where they've spoken to that happening, but the jobs and the capacity of what they're doing are just as diverse as anything that you'd find here on earth, right? Mm-hmm. It's massive. The spirit world is not like a tiny box. It's like a world. It's like an earth. And so human experience is just as varied there on that side as it is here. And the work of I don't know, claiming gospel, having interaction with Christ is just the same as it is here, right? With different kinds of perspectives. And so I always tell people, don't put it in a box. Like we have zero concept of what that looks like. So be open to the possibilities, because often they're gonna astound you of what is possible, what could happen if you allow it to happen, right? And the other thing of that too is like they are incredibly concerned about us. This is a really important time, this time in mortality that each of us have. And it's kind of like your time on stage. And so a lot of work goes into helping support you during your time on stage. And so even people that you don't know that you know are helping you. Like even there is a picture that I particularly love of, I forget who the artist is. I'm really not good with names, of like a single person. I think it's a woman, and she's like standing facing this way. And there's like a whole host of angels going out this way behind her. And that is exactly what it's like. It's like you're standing, you're completely oblivious to what's going on all the time, but there's like the whole host of heaven behind you pushing us forward. And the more that we are kind of aligning ourselves to a greater purpose, to our higher purpose, the more we can be aware of that help, the more we'll feel it, and the faster we'll go, the more momentum that we'll gain going through life. So I think that's a really big misconception that we have. They're not too busy. They know what you're doing. Don't put limits on their capacity, because they're not you. Like they're not embodied right now. So they don't have the same limitations that we have.
Right. Well, and I would add too, time is different, right?
Yes,
so
exactly.
Like the capacity, like we're always thinking of things in terms of linear time, and I have 24 hours in a day to get all the things done. And that's a limitation that doesn't exist for them. So like, imagine how much you could do if time was not an issue, right?
Right.
Like,
if it was both big and simple, right? Just taking out sleep alone, I'm like, I could accomplish so much more with my life. Right. What a waste of time. Yeah. And then another part of that too, I think that kind of goes hand in hand with that is we kind of also feel like they're not allowed. Like maybe something about the divine structure of things is like, well, it should come from God, not from them, right? It's not like we're praying to them. It's not like we're worshiping them. And I think that is a big difference we have here. There are a lot of religions all over the world, Buddhism, Shintoism, that like revere and get worshipful about ancestors. We're not doing ancestor worship. It's like ancestor connection. It's remembrance, right? And I do really believe that the divine plan is organized. It's structured. Not that God doesn't have that capacity to do it all themselves, but like it's structured, right? Because we're still learning. And that is another thing we'll hit on in just a second. We're still learning in the spirit world. We're still progressing. We still have to have the opportunity to do things in order to grow. And serving and helping other people is a huge way of helping us grow. So there is a divine structure that comes all the way down, and it is divinely organized and orchestrated. And so it's like that chain of command, the authority, the permissions that we all get to work. They have those to work with us too. And so does it come from God, or does it come from your great grandpa Mike? Like, it doesn't matter. It's still coming from God, right? Is it the Holy Ghost that helps you, or is it great grandpa Mike? It doesn't matter, because it's still coming from God. And I think a lot of the times we classify it all under the Holy Ghost. And sometimes it definitely is. But also sometimes it is that heavenly helpers. It's the team. It's the ministering angels that are also behind helping what we have going on all the time.
Yeah. So I think it's important to remember that we all have a common source, right? And that source is God. And so we are all a piece of God. And it's less about like, oh, like who am I allowed to go to? And more about who is most aligned for me to help me in this, right? And I feel like the ones that are closest to us are the ones that are assigned to us to support us for the particular things that we're doing, right?
Yes,
and this is something that like, I can say that. And then my practice is still like, I still tend to want to connect with Heavenly Father, Heavenly Mother, and Jesus. Like
Yes.
I'm still
Strong
like
vibe.
jumping the,
Yeah. Which I think
yeah.
is kind of we're supposed to, right? Because
Yeah.
ultimately it comes down to our relationship with deity. It comes down to our relationship with that Godhead, because that is where the most nurturing is going to come from. Everything else is like advice, but that is the source of truth and light and knowledge, right? And that is ultimately the goal of where we're to become. And that is one of the final points that I'll make that we misunderstand too, is like we think that we get through this life and we're there, like we've got it.
Yeah.
It's good. We're still growing by degrees, right?
Yes.
This is a really important time and a really important period. And there are a lot of reasons that life functions, the veil functions the way that it does, that are essential. But that doesn't mean that you've like finished the race and you've reached ultimate exaltation immediately, right at the end. From my experience, it very much seems to be that we're still growing. And I will often use the analogy with students and stuff of a staircase. So depending on where we get in our own spiritual evolution while we're here, and it's different for every person, right? We end up somewhere on this staircase in the spirit world, and we're still moving up. And everyone exits life and ends up somewhere. Most people are somewhere in the middle. Some people are more towards the bottom. Some people are more towards the top. But even in the spirit world, we are still progressing. We're still learning more. We're getting more light and knowledge, and we grow by degrees. And as I have perceived this personally through my own gifts, it's in the form of light. And so sometimes I'll have a connection with a spirit, and just like your average everyday person, we're great. We have like a little conversation. It's super fun. There seems to be a point at which we gain more light. We have more authority. We have more responsibility. I've seen angels. I'm just going to go out on a limb and make a dramatic statement. I've seen angels, and they appear different to me. There is some point at which we hit where matter shifts, and it's all states of matter, right? Energy is matter. It's all physics, really. If you want to get into the gritty of it, it's just physics. Everything is matter. Matter is energy. Yeah. And so when we are more refined, we're more purified, and we're in this state of purification, right? From here all the way up. Things change, things shift, and you gain more light. And there is some point at which it tips and it becomes more light than not. And it hits a point of what I would call angelicism. We're going to use that like it's a word.
I like it.
and you have more capacity. And then God is at the top of the staircase, right? That's our ultimate goal, is to become like God, like our Father in heaven, like our Heavenly Mother, like our Savior. And we're on the climb. We're getting up there, and it's on everyone's own speed, everyone's own journey. And I think the other thing too is we put a lot of competition on earth to those things, either against ourselves or against other people. The comparison is real. It's not on the other side. There is such a prevailing, overwhelming sense of love and understanding. There are no pretenses in spirit. Because there's nothing, you can't hide it. Like it's all kind of open to everyone. And so you are who you are. You have to accept that. You have to embrace that. You have to improve. And so it's extremely love-based and extremely accepting. It's not critical or censored the way that we would have it here, the way we project it to be here. It's more supportive and embracing and loving in an extreme sense. Like that is light. And we're purifying and refining our own light as we go up, as we get to more deeper levels of understanding, right? So I think that works really, really well with the gospel. That is our gospel. That is the doctrine which we hold dearly, right? In practice, in action. And the model still fits. Like it works here, it works there. It's better there, in fact. Like it's more streamlined as a process. It's simpler. It's more straightforward in a lot of ways. But I think it's really hope-giving and really, really beautiful. There's no other framework I found anywhere that tends to hold as much hope and as much light and as much love as is capable here. So I love to lead people and begin people, kind of lead them in with that in the spirit world, is like, it is a place of love, first and foremost. And that is the distinguishing factor, how, deception is a huge thing for us particularly. And a lot of people's trigger when they hear about these things with spiritual gifts, because we don't have a guidebook. Like we don't have rules. And we talk about ethics. We're gonna hit on that as like, where are the boundaries? Where are the guardrails that keep us safe in this practice, right? Because there is an opposing force. We can call it entity. We can call it the adversary. We can call it the devil. We can call it Satan. Whatever you want to call it. There is an opposing force, and it's just as real as the positive force, right? Just as real as the light and the love and the angels and God, and being aware that is there and knowing how to navigate that. I think one of the main factors is that you can't fake love. You can't.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no negative motivation or emotion or intention is love. You can't fake it. It's either authentic or it's not. And when something comes with a positive outcome, it's the whole, like, does it bear good fruit? Like, ultimately,
Mm-hmm.
does the
Yeah.
fruit taste good? Bear good fruit. You can't fake that to a degree. At some point, it will always be revealed as bad fruit. It will always taste sour or bitter. It will always do harm to someone, somewhere, sometime. Love doesn't do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so everything that comes from that light side is based in this pervasive feeling of love. Even if someone is working through their own dark place, it still comes from a place of wanting to improve, of wanting to help, to wanting to get better. Whereas this is coming from a place of ultimate destruction, right? Entropy, of tearing down, of breaking down. And so if you can settle into what those two things feel like, it's a lot easier to know your compass points, north and south,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
I think the other thing that I really want to hit on with those, the more negative, a lot of people are afraid to speak of this, almost like it's going to hearken in evil, just talking about it. A lot of that I think is psychological and cultural, but also kind of it minimizes the role of faith. If you are seeking after the light, the more you go into the light, the less hold darkness has on you,
Right.
right? That's, again, it's just physics.
Yeah.
So as you become refined, you literally separate yourself out from things of a lower nature, of a lower frequency or vibration, if you want to use those woo-woo words to describe it, because they can no longer hold on to you. And so this is where faith, hope, light, charity, like, really, we have those three, like faith, hope, and charity. Really, they are the core context of absolutely everything. They solve every problem. Even the problem of darkness, right? Even the problem of temptation or influence. Because the more we lean into those things, the less they can attach, they can hold on, and they can influence us. So when we have interactions like I did as a kid, like when you have those things, fear is the great lie that
Yeah.
steals your power because you give away your power. And the combat to that, the weapon that we have is faith and hope, right? So even if you're not Christian, that faith in light, that faith in and having that power, that connection to divinity, we would call it divine nature, is the secret power that we all have. And when you choose to go into that instead of choosing to lean into the fear, they can't hold you anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so when you're confronted by darkness, literally just making the choice to turn away from it makes it lose its grip, right?
Yeah.
When you light your own candle, when you say a prayer, when you use your faith and you lean into that, you believe that, you put your attention and your focus in that, the darkness loses hold.
Yeah.
So it's a hugely powerful. Like, we understate it all the time. It's hugely powerful. I don't know. Do you want me to go into specific experiences?
Yeah.
got
Sure.
got a
Can I add a comment, like, really fast before we go there? So yeah, I just wanted to highlight this, and this is one of the reasons why I don't, like, do a lot of talk around spiritual warfare kind of ideas, not
Yeah,
because it doesn't exist, but because, again, it's the thing that you're giving your attention to. It's what
right.
direction are you facing, right? And if you are facing the fear and the expectation of a battle, that's what you're going to get, like, every time, right?
Yeah,
And so learning how to cleanse our inner vessel of the kind of the chinks in our armor, right? Like, we all have trauma, we have false beliefs, we have mental processes that are not helpful to us, that elicit fear, that keep us in these low vibrations of, I would add, shame, guilt, apathy,
yeah,
lust, rage, like, just those emotions, like, those are the things that allow access from that darkness, right? And so the more that we do this inner work of cleansing this inner vessel and eradicating those things, right, coming more into alignment with with our divine nature,
right.
putting our focus on that direction, like, yeah, spiritual warfare doesn't have to be something that is
We're
always a
afraid
part of
of.
your experience. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's the kind of turning to face the light. Like,
Yes.
you're going to see more light. The more you face the light, then you're going to see the dark, right?
Right.
Doesn't mean it's not there. The other aspect to that too is that, like, you may still have dark experiences, but,
Right.
like, don't let them get to you. Why would you need to? Because you know so much that you're facing the light, right? It's going to
Mm-hmm.
happen. It's going to happen. And I think we tend to culturally, kind of, people are gun shy. We're a little bit nervous to go there most of the time because it's like we put all of it in one bucket. It's the baby and the
Mm-hmm.
bathwater, like, kind of all
Yeah.
in one giant context.
Right.
And so anything that happens kind of outside of typical explanation, we're like, oh, is it bad? Like we don't know.
Mhm.
But when you're really settled with those compass points, right? When you know good, then you are able to much more easily delineate the good from the bad
Mhm.
and turn
Mhm.
there and enhance focus on that, right? Put all of
Yeah.
your attention into that spot. And so we jump to conclusions a lot, I think.
Yeah.
Really quickly. Conclusions of fear.
Right. Well, and I want to say that like this whole idea, like when we're articulating it right now, it sounds really easy, right? It sounds like, well, yeah, of course, like I know what love feels like and I know what fear feels like. But what we don't know is how much programming we've received that
Right.
sometimes makes fear look like love, right? Or this idea that fear looks like protection. Like
Right.
or fear looks like wisdom. That's something that
Yeah.
I think a lot
That's
too is like
huge.
we're afraid of something and we use that as a justification to like, oh, that thing must be bad. I have to stay away from it. And it's like, no, maybe that thing is exactly for you and your fear is making you turn away from it, right? Like you have to have
Right.
more discernment to actually dig in and be like, why am I afraid? Oh, I'm afraid because I have this belief that if I engage in
Right.
the thing,
It's a
something bad's
personal
going to happen to me.
response.
Right. And
It's a
so
narrative.
it's a lot harder, right? And even the idea of God, like so much of what we believe about the character of God, um, depending obviously on the context in which we're raised, but so much of what we're given is not the most high God. Like
Right.
we honestly, there's so much rhetoric that we're given that is control based, that is fear
Or
based, that is
cultural based.
manipulation based. Yes.
Yeah.
And and there's parts of us that believe that like that's actually God. Like sometimes God just tells me what to do and will destroy me if I don't listen. Right.
Right.
And it's like,
Exactly.
no, that is a false God. That is fear. Right. And so it actually is incumbent upon us to really, again, try to have these encounters with the true God that
Right.
is this God of perfect love, right? Because once we experience that, experiencing it is the thing that sets our compass, right? And
Right.
so now we can say, I've experienced God, I've experienced the love of God. And oh my gosh, that
This is what
scripture
it is.
is not the love of God, right?
Yeah.
Having to experience it to have that discernment.
Yeah, I think that is exactly the point. I think a lot of life here, that one of the things we're really meant to do is re-understand and come to know ourselves deeper and our own divine nature, our own internal divinity, and our own capability and possibility, kind of with a handicap, right? I always think of that. I don't remember the name. Citizen Kane, I think it was called, the short story in like
Mm-hmm.
the dystopian world where everyone was given weaknesses. They were all like given different devices or things that like took their strengths away, right?
Mm-hmm.
Handicaps. And so they couldn't be better or special from anyone else. And it's this family and this guy, and they're watching TV, and someone goes on TV and they tear off their weights and they're dancing. And it's like a ballerina and this other guy. And the ballerina tears off her ankle weights and tears off her weight vest, and she dances beautifully across the stage, and everyone is in awe, right? Everyone is in awe. But then they get captured by the government and taken over. The analogy only goes so far as to say, like, we kind of have those handicaps here, and that handicap is perception. We're given very limited perception of all of these things because we're meant to rediscover and to really deeply understand who we are, and who God is, and what the point and purpose of all of that is, and the relationship of what that is, and test it on our own, right? Test it and come to know the true power of it. And so many things get in the way. Mortality is a hard place. We
Mm-hmm.
create stories and we create narratives and we create cultures and we create climates and we create all these interpretations of things. And I think God lets it play out. And he's like, well, we'll see
Yep.
what you do here. This is
Yeah.
it's a fun experiment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because ultimately, it will all work together for the good anyway. And I think
Yeah.
one of the things that this has taught me more than anything else is to trust that.
Yeah.
We put such a finite limitation on all of these things. Like, it has to be now. We have to
Mm-hmm.
figure it out, and we have to make it work. It doesn't. It's not just about right now. We have so much more time. We have so much of a bigger context. We're in a microscope box, and there
Yeah.
is the whole other world that we have yet to experience and to see. And so it is a lot about breaking those chains that are on us, that are things that we give ourselves so much of the time,
Mm-hmm.
narratives that we spin, things that we have passed down to other people, and those things are worked through systems, and eventually those things become cultural. Those things become bigger, broader systems that we maybe buy into. And I think so much of that, like you said, has to be understood through the lens of what it is. And when we actually have real lived experience, it breaks the box. The paradigm breaks and begins to shift. And oftentimes that's painful because we like to be comfortable where we are. But really the key to those kinds of things is the lived experience. It's taking it from something conceptual into something real. And I think the breakdown that we have so often is to thinking we can't have those.
Right.
Or some people can have those, right?
Right.
It's not you.
Yeah.
It's a leader, it's something like that, but it's not the case. God has that relationship with each of us. We each have the capacity, and when we seek that out, he is more than willing to open more light and truth. And we should be seeking after that. We should be transformed.
Yeah. Totally agree. I think all spiritual gifts are available to all of us. And although it might not always be relevant to us, right? Like there might be some gifts that we feel more called to than others because they're more applicable to what we came here to learn and experience and the ways that we came here to grow. So what do you like when someone is approaching you and like wanting to learn about their spiritual gifts? Like, is that alignment aspect something that you ever bring up? Like how, or a better question, how does someone know if spirit communication like you have cultivated is A, one of their gifts, one of their primary gifts, and B, something that they should be working on developing? And I'll contextualize it this way. I think it's so cool that you do that. And I totally believe that I have the capacity to do that. And I also feel like that's kind of not the thing that God wants me to focus on right now, even though I think it's so cool. And I'm like a little bit annoyed that it's not the thing. You know what I mean? So how do you like coach someone to discern all of that?
So I think we should maybe set some context to begin with here. Spiritual gifts are one of those things everybody has their own feelings about, and within Christianity as well. I mean, in like Corinthians, Paul talks about like different parts of the body, right? Like using the analogy for humanity or for the church. It's one of my favorite areas of the New Testament where he's talking about like we need heads, we need hands, we need feet. All of them accomplish a different purpose. There are many gifts. We should seek after every good gift, but don't judge the gifts that you don't have, right? Yeah. So it is my personal theory based off of my experience. And I tell my students and stuff all the time, like, I don't know all things. Like, I don't have all of the answers. We're all still learning. I've been doing this a while. I have a lot of experience and I have to go off of my experience. And when I learn new things or I have new questions, I put it on my shelf to wait to see until I can have experience with that thing, right? It's been my experience that it's been made known to me that we have to take in the eternal scope of the soul, right? We focus a lot on now. We focus a lot on later. We focus less on before. And who knows how long we were organized matter. Like, who knows how long? And we are kind of unique in the Latter-day Saint faith of having context for that. Many other Christian denominations do not. Yet we believe the soul is eternal, right? But there had to be some element of identity to us before, some sovereignty of the soul that always existed and always will, some core self, right? And I think that core self probably is more prone to certain things than other things. Like we had interests, we had passions, we had propensities.Maybe there was spirit school in the premortal, in the life before. We're like, I want to go to that class. Like, I like that one. We wandered over there. We spent like, I don't know, a good 1,000 years learning one particular skill. And so maybe some of us come into life with a more of a capacity in that area, in that skill. I mean, we consider this a spiritual gift. Maybe it is something that we have more native sensitivity to, or native desire to achieve or fulfill. And so it is where our interests lead. It's where our capacity goes. And we have more talent in that area than maybe some other people do. So I think that has to be kind of taken in context, but it doesn't mean that we can't learn also, right? But it would be less productive, like you said, for us to waste time on things that aren't meant to drive us to our purpose just now. And so I think ultimately, when you kind of give that back to the Lord and you're like, well, what do you think I should do? It generally goes better. Not to say that he won't let us kind of dabble in the things that we're interested in, but we have seasons and we have progressions. We have mile markers of learning. I'm not somebody who buys into the thought of destiny, but what I have seen is that we all have arcs and we all have storylines that we were meant to do, that we have already kind of like pre-discussed. We would call it coordination or I call them mile markers of things that we're meant to achieve, accomplish, learn, grow in areas in our life while we're here in mortality. And sometimes certain disruptions would bring us way off track. And sometimes things are okay. They'll keep us still on track. And sometimes things are necessary for us to continue forward. Usually, no matter what we do, those necessary things are going to happen sooner or later at some point. That those spiritual helpers in heaven aren't going to let us get so far off track that we're not going to accomplish that while we're here. But sometimes the other things can just be helpful or may just be totally unhelpful. So I think given time, whether or not what I will tell my students all the time is that everybody has the capacity to learn this, and the skills that happen to do within, like what I do with spirit communication, are broad, even just into discernment. And discernment is a really important thing. Probably the most important thing, the most important foundational gift. And I consider it like an umbrella. Underneath this discernment, there is many other things that trickle down and fall. And maybe your many other modality is different maybe than my modality, but we all have to come back to this discernment, which can be defined under perception. It goes into perceiving. So when you see the gift of discernment in action, scripturally, for instance, they usually will use the word perceive. Like Jesus perceived something about this person, right? He just knew it. There was no material, physical indicator of it. He just had a perception of it. That's discernment in action. Anything that is of a spiritual nature has to be discerned to begin with, to know that it's even happening. We have to perceive things that are not physical, but are spiritual in nature. And so any of these, we call it intuitive today. Anything intuitive has to come through this capacity to know, to discern something that's not physical around us. And anyone can benefit from that. That is the foundational thing that we must learn in order to connect back to the Lord, because otherwise we're neglecting a whole half of our existence, our spiritual nature, right?
Or really more, right? Because as we were talking about, like so many things, way more going on behind the scenes than what we're consciously aware of, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And anything like revelation, answers to prayer, connection with God, all of this falls back on discernment. You have to perceive it because it's usually not going to show up like a punch in the face. It's not generally a physical thing that occurs. And so whether or not someone wants to learn to do this, or they begin learning this and it's more like, that's not your thing, or it's not your season, or like it's not productive for you right now. The key principles to paying attention, to perceiving in the spirit, and to listening are applicable across the board. So I will tell people, try it out. See how you feel in this particular niche area. Maybe this one's not for you right now, but the things that you learn will apply to everything. Because you can learn to be perceptive to this, you'll learn to be perceptive to the voice of the Spirit, capital T, capital S, or the voice of God, or the hand of Him in your life. It will help you be more aligned to what you want, where you're going, and it will lead you to the other gifts that you are meant to pick up right now, that are serving you right now, right? And so it's not really like oh, you're damned because you did this thing and I told you not to. It's kind of like it's going to fall into place where it's meant to fall into place, how it's meant to fall into place, right? And so it's kind of like a sifting pattern. And when you begin to go into something, pretty soon you'll feel if it settles or not. There's also the interesting conversation, which we kind of hit on earlier, of like roadblocks and how to handle those. Are they meant to knock you into a different path, or is it something you're meant to overcome? And sometimes it's both. Like, is it sheer gumption that you're supposed to push through, or is this God giving you a sign saying this is not for you? Again, you have to have discernment to figure out how to handle these things, right?
I love the answer being, you've got to try. Like, that makes me so happy. Well, and because I think that, again, like when we interpret fear as wisdom, usually what we think is, don't go anywhere near the thing. Like, don't try it, whatever you do. And the reality is that that's just not how progression works. Like, at one point or another, you have to eat the fruit. And then you're going to know if it's good fruit or bad fruit.
Right. That's why Eve is portrayed as wisdom, right? Because she ate the fruit, because she saw the need of it. And I personally, like, sometimes I think, and I'm like, why did I have to experience? Why did I not have to? Like, was it a have to, or was it me? Like, it doesn't matter of my childhood, of like all this scary stuff that I had. And I don't know that it matters now in the context. And that's a very Zen thought of like, we'll leave it there. Like, we don't have to dive in, parse it, and put it into categories and boxes. It happened, accept that it happened, and move forward with what we gain from this, right? What I gain from this is the clear delineation I gain a deep understanding of light and dark, and knowing when I see them, which is which, because I ate the fruit. I had the dark experience. You have to move through sorrow to know joy, right? And so I think one of the things we teach, but we don't always live, is that fear doesn't come from God. Oftentimes fear is ego, right? Warning can come from God. I mean, distaste, maybe, like aversion can come from God, but it's often embraced in love. Like I said, with people being afraid of dark experiences or dark things, I'm like, that fear is an ego-based response, because when you're living from a place of faith or alignment or light or whatever word you want to use for it, you're not afraid of it.
Right.
You're not afraid of it. You know that you're capable of handling it. You know that it's not right for you. And you know that you don't want it in your house or in your life or in your experience. And so you get rid of it. You turn away from it. You cast it out and you go on with your day, right? It's not like it has to hold power over you. And so that fear, when it shows up in your life in any sense, is because you've developed a narrative around it. Your ego is having an ego-based response to something. And usually that means that you probably should do some looking into why.
Yes.
Right?
That's psychology. There's probably something to overcome, right? As opposed to something that's moving you off track. Yeah.
Some growth based. We don't have to go into the whole story now. But I've had many experiences with people who have fear-based responses to what I do. And I'm like, it's par for the course. Like, this is the road that I'm on. Unfortunately, the Lord has been very, very good to me in helping me be able to navigate those things and come out, if not unscathed, at least whole.
Yes.
Healed. And and what kind of has been the wisdom that's trickled down with that for me is like, they're still working with themselves, right? They're still having this narrative that they're giving themselves. One particular, it's a huge story that maybe someday we'll go into. I had a man in one of my wards that I was in several years ago. He wasn't the bishop when I was there. I was the young women's president, and he was in the bishopric. So he was under the leader of our congregation. And I was over the female youth organization. And this came to a head. He became aware I was working with people and doing these things, and it was problematic for him because he's like, I can't handle this. This seems dark. This is like secret combinations, like you're meddling with things. And I'm like, look, the fruits are good. And I had so many people vouching for what I was doing and the experiences that they had with me that were good. This like spirit-based, right? Gospel oriented. And he just he could handle it. We ended up moving away. There's a whole lot of context. It was actually a very, very involved story that put my church membership into question and all the things. But eventually, like as soon as I left, he became the bishop of the area, and he it blew back negatively on some of my friends in the area. And the conversations that I had always had with him, I could present doctrine, I could quote scripture, I could tell him experience. We had corroborating witnesses, like all the things. And he was like, I just can't handle. I can't handle having the thought that the spirit world is with us all the time. Like they can't exist side by side. Like it's very telling. And what happened after that was months of intense drama where things went all the way up to church headquarters and back down. And it was like, the council came back from like the larger governing body of the church of like, let him do his thing. You're where you are, you're under the leadership that you're under, and it's separate. And it's because he's on his journey, right? He's on his journey with what he's doing per his understanding where he is right now, based to what he can handle. And everyone has that. And the greater wisdom comes down to grace, right? Give them grace where they are, because they're still working with concepts that are really uncomfortable for where they are. And you can't force someone to fit into something that they can't fit, or force them to come out of something where they won't come out. Right.
Right. Nor is that righteous. And that's something that God would never do. Right. Like that's another one of the markers.
Right. Nor to be effective, because it's kind of like exceeding your priesthood, right? Like if you're making someone do something, they're not actually learning the lesson. It's not changing them or enlightening them. It's forcing them into something where it's beyond them yet, right? It's wasted effort. So
another really good another good principle to look at in terms of discernment, right, is that the light is always inviting, persuading.
Yes.
The dark is the one that is trying to command and control and force, right?
Yes. Even down to our own egos and fear. I mean, there's nothing more controlling than fear. And once we gain a level of understanding, we notice that the fear also dissipates around that thing, and the need to control it also dissipates around that thing too.